Welcome to the Multiply Your Success podcast, where each week we help growth-minded entrepreneurs and franchise leaders take the next step in their expansion journey. I'm your host, Tom Dufour, CEO of Big Sky Franchise Team. And as we open today, I'm wondering if you've ever thought about how to create a success loop, one in which your success leads to others' success, which leads to success then being multiplied. Something kind of like a virtuous cycle on repeat. Well, our guest today is Nick Shaw, and he shares with us about his 7 pillars of success from his book called Fit for Life, and how implementing those have helped him and his partner to build a success loop with their business and the product and services that they are offering. Now, Nick is the founder and CEO of Renaissance Periodization, a multi-million-dollar company that helps people achieve their health and fitness goals through evidence-based methods. Their YouTube channel is the #1 fitness channel on YouTube and has over 2.5 million subscribers. You're going to love this interview as Nick and I get into some of the details. So let's go ahead and jump right into it.
Thanks so much for having me on. It's great to be here. Nick Shaw. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called RP Strength. You used to have a name called Renaissance Periodization, but, I can barely spell that, so we decided to make it a little simpler. That's what I've been doing for the last decade plus now.
Wonderful. You have a book that you wrote, Fit for Success. Give us just, an initial overview of the book, and then talk about why you wrote the book.
Yeah. I guess why I wrote the book was 2 reasons. One, I'm just really curious as to what makes people successful. And I just have this really high drive that I want to be successful myself and, help as many people. And so that kind of just naturally leads you down the path of reading a bunch of books. And you start to read a bunch of different topics and different, autobiographies and whatnot of people. And there just tend to be a lot of your common themes that stand out. And it took me a while to start noticing them. And I was like, oh, wow, like there's a completely unrelated field. And then I started, running through this in my own head. And I've been able to coach some pretty high level athletes. And I was like, well, that makes sense. And you just kind of start piecing everything together. And you're like, oh, wow, okay, here's these common themes. I know how we do stuff at RP when we write books on nutrition and training. We sort of compile things down in like a pyramid. What's most important, here's a handful of things. At the bottom is the most important. You work your way up. So I was like, I think I can do this. And, I'm not a PhD in nutrition or training. So I was like, we've got plenty of people at RP that can do that. But what we don't have is more of a generalized book, maybe on more like mindset, just, success in general. And so that was one big reason. The other reason was I started doing this during COVID, and my wife was going through some health issues. She's now perfectly fine. But we weren't going anywhere. My kids were being homeschooled because of, this is right after COVID hit, spring of 2020, which seems like forever ago, by the way, like 4.5 years ago now. But so really I just needed something to do. And I was like, well, I guess writing a book could be a good thing to keep me occupied and not going anywhere for a while. So I've got some time on my hands, and I wanted to get it out before 2020 was over, just because literally everyone in the world was being impacted by COVID. So succeeded in that, got it out November of 2020. So it's been a while. It's been out for a bit. Compiled everything down into 7 main themes, like 7 main habits of what makes people successful. And again, it's based on a pyramid, so you have to have the bottom, right? Because if you don't have the bottom, then the overall success, goes down. Kind of give the TLDR here. So the bottom one is the most important, but also is like the most obvious, that probably has the least amount of time in the book spent on it. So that's all about work ethic. And you've not really ever met anyone that's successful that doesn't work really hard. Even if you are lucky, again, at some point you just have to put, all your ideas into action. So work ethic, pretty self-explanatory. And then you start to get, a little bit beyond that, and you get into sort of what's called internal and external locus of control. So that one's really more about where are you focusing your time, efforts, and energy. And successful people tend to focus more on what they have control over. And, external focus would be you are more worried about what other people are doing or what's going on sort of to you. Whereas in general, people that tend to be more successful tend to focus on, even if something's bad happening, it's like, okay, this is happening, but what can I do about it? What can I actually do about it? And that's where you want to direct your time and efforts. Because if you spend your time focusing on things you have no control over.
You share in that chapter specifically some examples about Marcus Aurelius and talk a little bit about him in there. Would you mind sharing that?
I believe the quote is, and hopefully I'll get this right. I've probably said it enough times I can get it mostly right. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Like that's when it boils down to you don't have control over things that are happening, kind of around you or what other people are doing. You really, at the end of the day, only have control over you. And, to me, this is a great mindset because it's something I kind of try to remind myself every day is, no matter what's happening, I'm not a victim. I'm not a bystander. There's always something that I can do. Even if it's tiny as just changing the way that I think about something. Well, that can actually have a really big impact. So lo and behold, leads into the success habit number 3, which is positive mindset. People that are successful tend to be more positive. A quick note on that is something that I found really fascinating. And this is, because again, it's actually really great to talk about the book now because, there's a lot of stuff that I've read and thought about like since I published the book and kind of add some little caveats into it. And, one thing is the difference between hope and optimism. So, when most people think positive mindset, they just think, oh, okay, like optimist. Oh, you just like want to think things are going to be okay. Totally. And that's by and large mostly true. But then there's a little bit of a difference between hope. And that really is, that things are going to be okay because you have control over what's going on. And again, so it links into the other 2 habits before it. So it links to internal locus of control. You focus on the things you actually have control over, which then gives you more incentive, more emphasis to do the work. It goes into work ethic. So again, they sort of all tie into one another. And that really is a cool thing about hope. Like, well, you things are going to be better because you have something to do and say about it. So that one's really cool. Get into discipline. Man, we could probably have a separate podcast on literally every single one of these. Discipline's a really interesting one. Is there maybe a large genetic base to that? Potentially, very much potentially. So, does that give some people a head start? I don't know. Maybe there's probably something to that. But at the same time, it's probably also something that you can, improve your environment, things like that to make it a little bit easier. So you don't have to use as much willpower. But, most successful people have discipline. They have the ability to delay gratification now for the longer term time horizon. That's really probably my big takeaway on that. And then, so the last couple is really just like your purpose. Most people, there's going to be some bumps along the way. Number 6, failure. It's a really interesting one. It's a book on success. Why would there failure be in there? Well, it's kind of what you learn from failure because everyone's going to have some bumps and bruises along the way. We might be getting ahead of ourselves. I know that was one of the questions you were going to ask, but yeah, if you're going to be successful, you're gonna have some misses along the way. And, what can you learn from them? Don't repeat them. And then, again, all this is really hard work. And when you have the failures, again, it ties into the one before about your purpose. It's a lot easier when you sort of have a calling. Yeah, you're going to have some bumps and bruises along the way, but when you know that you're meant to do it, it's what you love. It's a lot easier to overcome. And at the very top, this is just all a lot of hard work. And I think a lot of times people, they want to be successful and they push and they push and they push. It sort of becomes a proverbial burning the both ends of the candle. And so you have to have a little bit of a time to step back, recharge your batteries, read, learn, whatever, work out, practice mindfulness, things like that. If you really want to increase the level that you're able to get to.
Absolutely. Well, I really like that you kept that recharge. I like how you phrased that final habit there for the success habit there and having people recharge because it is something most of our audience that will tune in, I describe as successful entrepreneurs and leaders that are leading organizations. And it's easy when you're in that role to not take a break or feel like you're always on when you're going through that.
Absolutely. I think actually at RP, one thing that we actually have to do and encourage people is to actually take time off because we tend to be a group that by and large is going to push ourselves. And sometimes we don't want to push people to the breaking points, which is funny because from a fitness standpoint, we all we know this. It's literally what we teach people. But then sometimes it's easy to get caught up in, work stuff and you kind of forget that a little bit. And so it's like, success is universal. If you want to be successful in fitness, right, you can't always just push, 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 push. Like there have to be times when you back off here and there, to manage fatigue and, not get overtrained, not get hurt. And, really the same can apply when you're applying it to work and applying it to business. And again, there are times when you have to go pedal to the metal. Absolutely times. But there's also times where you have to back off a little bit. Now, for us, an easy example is like seasonality. And, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, New Year's, we're a fitness company. All right, that's prime time, Super Bowl season. Let's go, folks. But, maybe in the fall, like, hey, I've got a vacation coming up and I'm going to take a week off and, go to Italy with my wife. And I sort of encourage other people, within the company, hey, like, during the fall months, now's the time to take a little break, get rested up, get ready because we know that Super Bowl season's coming up. So something like that. There's some little things you can do about that for sure.
One of the things, and I know we'll get into this in a couple of questions, just how you've been able to essentially bootstrap a business and grow it to where you have and grow a business over 100 million in revenue. If you can give us a little overview on your business and how people can get in touch with you, and we'll jump into the 4 questions we always like to ask every guest here.
Yeah, so RP Strength is an online fitness company. So, definitely started as just purely a fitness company where were really coaching people. We thought we had a pretty good method about how to do things. We thought we could scale that. So rather than someone needing to pay for a one-on-one coach, we thought, well, we kind of know the systems and processes in place. Can we scale this, kind of automate it, make it like a digital product? We were able to do that. It was wildly successful. At the same time, we knew that one day we wanted to get to where we had apps for this. And so we have 2 apps. We have the RP Diet Coach app. So people want to, kind of really dial in their nutrition. I will say our demographic is intermediate and advanced people in the fitness space. So if there's like total beginners listening, we do have one thing that can help those people, but that's probably not our main demographic. It's definitely I guess the best way to describe it is like if you're already into fitness and you're like, yeah, I've kind of tried a bunch of stuff. I can't quite figure it out. And it's just a little overwhelming, but like, I just want someone to tell me what to do to get that next level. That's us. We're perfect for that. That's where we excel. We also have a training app. So it's called the RP Hypertrophy app. And that's for people that are like, hey, you know what? I want to get more jacked. I want to get more ripped. Like, I want to know, how do I train to get those results? That is what we are the best in the world at. And that is hypertrophy training, which sort of ties into, if you're like, oh, this sounds really interesting, I want to go check those guys out, go to our YouTube channel. It is currently right now the #1 fitness channel on YouTube, has been for a while based on number of views per month. And, we hit 1 million subscribers right before the turn of the year. It was like a couple days before New Year's. And we're pushing close to about 2.5 million now. So it's really just took off. And again, we've got a great team in place. And my colleague, co-founder of RP, he's the face of the YouTube channel. He's absolutely hilarious. People love him. So even if you're like, yeah, sometimes fitness really overwhelms me, his skill is taking complex ideas and then breaking them down to really just easy to digest information. And he also cracks all sorts of jokes. So people really love the humor. So it's entertainment and education. That's what really sort of draws people in. So I would go to YouTube, just search RP Strength, or if you want the longer name, Renaissance Periodization, it'll come up and you can watch essentially any topic you can think of in fitness. And, chances are, especially if you like to laugh and like some jokes, you'll absolutely love it.
Thanks for that. We'll make sure we include those links in the show notes. And I know you gave us a little overview on these, but the first question we always like to ask every guest is, have you had a miss or two on your journey and something you learned from it?
I would say a really big miss. And what's funny is, right before we started and you were listing these questions out, I think there's a good kind of segue on all these and how they can all connect. But I would say a big miss was when I started talking about my buddy and, making the jokes and all that. I used to think that as, CEO, I needed to be, or we needed to be as a company, Switzerland, right? What is Switzerland known for? Being neutral. They wouldn't get caught up in, the world wars or anything like that. And I was like, that's who we need to be. We're not here to kind of be edgy or push one way or another, because if we say anything, right, you might tick off someone on one side or the other side. And I'm not talking just politics, because nutrition is hugely dogmatic and there's kind of people on each side of it. And so I was just like, you know what, that's not where we need to be. And I was completely wrong. And as I sort of started reading, studying, learning more about marketing, it's like, no, you actually want to be really authentic and true to yourself. And some of the things that you say might rub people the wrong way. And like, those just aren't your people. Like, they can go elsewhere and there's other folks on the internet that can provide great services to them. And we'd be happy to point people to those folks if they're not for us. And, some of that comes down to just like language used. And my buddy is very colorful with his language and, he'll swear and all that stuff. And I just remember like the first time he started doing that a bit more publicly, I was like, oh boy, like what's going to come? And just people loved it. Were there some people along the way that were like, oh, this guy, yeah, oh, this guy, I can't believe this guy's swearing and all that. And, one of the other big misses is really just in terms of my own psychology, and that I used to really let that stuff bother me, thinking that like we had to please every single person. And eventually that just kind of got kind of old. It's like, well, if we can please 97 people out of 100, I'm not going to worry about those 3. And so like that was a really enlightening thing. And then it let us lean into more of that authenticity, which then has seen just kind of the eruption of the YouTube channel and all that. And now it's the number one place for fitness information. So those would be two big misses, I think.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for sharing those. And let's talk about a make or two, some highlights.
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, a good segue is because once we started to realize that the make would really be leaning into the authenticity, leaning into the colorful sort of character that my buddy is, Dr. Mike. And by the way, he's like going on a lot of these big podcasts now. He's become sort of a celebrity in the fitness space, and is really just embracing that and leaning into it, and knowing that there's going to be some flack that we catch along the way. But the make is just pretty obvious with the explosion of the YouTube channel. And it's we went from 1 million to 2 million in like roughly 6 months, and it's kind of only accelerating, which is really wild to think about. And so it kind of starts to change your perspective on stuff. So that's a huge make. Another one I would say is on that, which is just having the apps as well. And it's been a really big hit with like the product market fit from the YouTube demographic that wants a lot of information, tends to lean a bit more male, but they want information on hey, how do I get more jack, like how do I look a lot better. And that's perfect for our apps. And so like the product market fit has been really, really good with our apps, I would say. So that's another big make.
One of the things I was excited about having you on, you have your book, Fit for Success, and our show is called Multiply Your Success. So have you used a multiplier as you've grown yourself personally or professionally or your company?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think we'll keep going with the segues, and when I talk about the apps, so I think a lot of content creators, because I've started reading a lot more on just like the influencer and content creator space, and kind of trying to lean into that a bit more. There's kind of this, what do you want at the bottom of the funnel if you're an influencer? Well, you want something that can be fairly high margin and hopefully has like recurring revenue and has the ability to scale, which is the multiplier. And when you have software, well, that is pretty easy to do that because we could add 10x our member base, and the marginal costs of, I don't know, paying Amazon Web Service, AWS, it'll go up a little bit. Yeah, we might hire another engineer or something like that. But by and large, the scaling capability of the apps is really quite high, which really is the multiplier right there. And so they all kind of tie into one another.
Absolutely. Well, the final question we ask every guest, Nick, is what does success mean to you?
Yeah, that's the hardest one. That's the one I got to think about a little bit more. But at the end of the day, it's like, all right, so why did Dr. Mike and I start RP in the first place? Well, we thought that we had a pretty good understanding of fitness, Mike especially, because he's got the PhD, that we could help people reach their fitness goals in a more efficient manner. And so that's really like, that's why we created RP. And we've been able to do that very well. But to me, success is how do we take that and how do we help the greatest number of people make sure that they're using good evidence-based practices. They're not using, random stuff or stuff that doesn't work or sometimes stuff that's even downright harmful. And we become the go-to place on the internet via the YouTube channel for when people want no BS fitness information. That's where they come, and leaning into that as much as we can. That's obviously done very, very well. And then what does success look like even more? Well, we keep growing that. We keep doing that. We keep doubling down on that. And by the way, it creates YouTube revenue, which, leads into more app revenue, which is great for the company. And then we can take that and give back. So what we're doing is we give RP research grants to a number of labs all over the world. We don't tell them what to study, how to use the funds. We just say, hey, here's some money, go do the research. They get to go do research. Now, again, it's in the fitness space specifically. So again, it all ties back to fitness. Like that's our thing. We can bring them on to discuss their research, which gives them a platform to talk about like the latest and greatest of what's going on in research. And then also set up a nonprofit where we can give scholarships back to people probably that are watching the YouTube channel, want to go to school to study kinesiology. We can let them apply. We'll choose a handful of people each year. So it's like now we just have this positive feedback loop where now we're able to help more people. I kind of like a Mr. Beast thing, but obviously on a smaller scale. But he's really well known for that of giving back and all that. So that to me, I think is what success looks like, and just helping more people.
As we bring this to a close, is there anything you were maybe hoping to share or get across that you haven't had a chance to yet?
Yeah, I think for anyone that's listening to this, like, oh yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Or I've kind of been thinking about starting something with fitness. I'm just a little nervous or intimidated. I'm not really sure where to start. Go to the YouTube channel. Search anything you want on there. You're going to find a video on it. We've got some videos designed for, beginners, how to get started, things like that. And just watch those. They're going to be funny. You're going to learn a bunch from it. You're going to laugh. It's going to, click. It's going to make sense, or hopefully it does. And listen, if it doesn't, then okay, go somewhere else. That's fine. But for most people, they think, oh, okay, wow, this is really great stuff. Just go there, check it out, go in with an open mind, and do that. Get started. Take a little action. Because here's the thing, right? As entrepreneurs, it's easy to overlook. When you go back to that recharge part at the top of the pyramid, and I've seen this before. I'm in some Vistage groups and hang out with other CEOs, run companies and whatnot. It's really easy to overlook your health when you're really focused on your business. But I think that the total level of output can go up when you take care of yourself, you take care of your body, you take care of your mind, until you actually can accomplish more. And so it becomes a kind of that positive feedback loop where you actually get more done. You accomplish more because your per level unit of output goes up when you're taking care of yourself. So I would highly encourage people to get into that and check it out. And I guess that's pretty cool that we've been able to make a pretty cool business from it.
Well, look, listening to you give this overview, I will be going to your channel to search as someone that has a nagging injury, that's been an athlete in the past and trying to sort out, how do I get into this? So I will be searching for that specifically when I go to your channel to see what recommendations or advice you have there.
Definitely, there's videos on how to come back from injuries and things like that. If you're in the fitness space long enough, you're going to have some little nagging injuries, and there's definitely better ways to go about coming back from that than some other kind of sillier ways. So again, it's our job to help sort through all that information, and just try to give people the real deal, no BS approach.
This has been great. And what is that YouTube channel again, and your website for people to get in touch with you all?
Yeah, website's really easy, rpstrength.com. The YouTube channel is still technically named Renaissance Periodization. It's one of those things when something's going so well, you're like, do I tempt the fate and like change the name over? And it's always been like, ah. We even asked some people at YouTube and they're like, yeah, you're probably fine to do it, but gee whiz, it's just going so well. It's like, do you really want to rock the boat? So Renaissance Periodization, or just search, Dr. Mike, anything kind of to do with lifting, and it's almost certainly going to come up, and his face is pretty recognizable, so it tends to stand out. But yeah, highly encourage people to check that out, and appreciate you having me on and giving me a chance to let people know about it.
Nick, thank you so much for a fantastic interview. And let's go ahead and jump into today's 3 key takeaways. So takeaway number 1 is the bottom-up triangle from Nick's book that he shared, and the 7 pillars of it. Starting from the bottom, working up, is number 1, work ethic. Number 2 is the internal and external locus of control. Number 3 is a positive mindset. Number 4, discipline. Number 5, purpose and meaning. Number 6, failure. And number 7, recharge. Takeaway number 2 is when Nick talked about the miss that he had in his business, and he said he used to think that as a company and as a business, you needed to be, quote, Switzerland, unquote, or to be neutral on all things. And takeaway number 2, which is what that miss led into, which was the make, was that they actually needed to lean into their authenticity and what makes them unique, basically taking a stand, actually not being afraid to share what they're actually thinking or their thoughts are, or what their point of view or perspective is. And now it's time for today's win-win. So today's win-win comes from the end of the episode when Nick was talking about success. And he really talked about creating a success loop. And I thought that was excellent in what he shared, because the success loop started with them creating the business, which led to the creation of the apps and now the YouTube channel. And as the business has grown in each of these capacities, they've been able to give back. And so they've been able to sponsor research and provide research grants. That new research in the fitness world helps provide better quality research, and in turn creates better educated, more informed professionals, trainers, and experts out there providing information. And then the other part of that is they're able to now sponsor students to go back to school and future researchers. And then that research is used in their work and what they're doing to promote healthier, more well-informed fitness education and fitness practices. Thought that was just great. And you see this success loop that gets created, like how we led the episode off. And that's the episode today, folks. Please make sure you subscribe to our podcast and give us a review. And remember, if you or anyone you know might be ready to franchise their business or take their franchise company to the next level, please connect with us at bigskyfranchiseteam.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to having you back next week.